Aaron Dykes here, Infowars.com. Yesterday on the Alex Jones Show, we talked about a very disturbing quote from Sir Julian Huxley, the first director of UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Science, Culture Organization, which really aims to restructure society, to use education and other platforms as a tool to resynthesize the culture we have, to change our values from, for instance, traditional religious-based values into the new system, readying it for the New World Order. That's really a project that Sir Julian Huxley, brother of Brave New World author Aldous Huxley, was working on. And this quote comes from Evolutionary Studies, centenary celebration of the life of Julian Huxley. And this is an official publication from the Eugenics Society. You could see it there on the spine, published directly from the Eugenics Society. And here in chapter 13, we find the quote in the chapter of Julian Huxley and eugenics. He was an open supporter of eugenics, of course, as was his brother and others in his family, as they have roots directly back to the days of Darwin and the originer of eugenics, Sir Francis Galton. Here in this quote, he's responding to something that eugenicist Dean Inge said, saying eugenics is capable of becoming the most sacred ideal of the human race. As a race, one of the supreme religious duties. And then Julian Huxley goes on to say in his 1936 Galton lecture that he agrees entirely with him. Once the full implications of evolutionary biology are grasped, eugenics will inevitably become part of the religion of the future, or of whatever complex of sentiments may in the future take the place of organized religion. And that's not the only time Julian Huxley talks about this concept. He's here in another quote I've got pulled up on the internet, talking about calling eugenics the highest and most sacred duty, and saying that man in his proper utilization and the untapped resources basically will be carried out in eugenics. More specifically in the exact quote, I find myself inevitably driven to use the language of religion, for the fact that all this does add up to something in nature of a religion. One might call it evolutionary humanism, and saying it's not even about the belief in God, it's about the overall sense of man and his destiny, the destiny to be carried out through eugenics. And of course, Julian Huxley was not the first to talk about eugenics being a religion. In fact, the first person on record to officially talk about eugenics as a religion was the man who coined the term eugenics, Sir Francis Galton, first cousin of Charles Darwin, writer of Origin of Species, of course. And these families were all linked together in the Royal Society of Science in England in the late 1800s, really getting this eugenics and selective breeding program underway, all for greater power in the state and this pursuit of a world society, or a, quote, New World Order. Now here on page 43 we have Sir Francis Galton saying, I see no impossibility in eugenics becoming a religious dogma among mankind. Another book out of critic of eugenics, G.K. Chesterton, Eugenics and Other Evils. He's got an index with a wide variety of quotes. He's got another one from Galton's paper, Eugenics must be introduced into the national conscience like a new religion. It is indeed strong claims to become an orthodox religious tenet of the future, for it cooperates with the workings of nature, securing humanity, and shall be represented by the fittest races. George Bernard Shaw, the Fabian socialist and great admirer and proponent of eugenics, as well as dictator-based genocide, wrote, I agree with the paper and go so far as to say that there is now no reasonable excuse for refusing to face the fact that nothing but a eugenic religion can save our civilization from the fate that has overtaken all previous civilizations. And what is the thing that has allowed previous civilizations to crumble, according to him, calling for a new eugenical religion? It's really a lack of total centralized state control, of the belief that individual families have a right to decide how many children they want to have, who's going to live, who's going to die. Instead, they want those types of powers and a lot more in the hands of the state. What I want to do now is play a clip from Jason Burmis's Invisible Empire.
The whole concept of New World Order is something else. It really says that the state is God.
The state will play a big...
The whole concept of the New World Order really says that the state is God. That's a quote from Michael Peroutka. He was a Constitution Party presidential candidate in 2004. The whole concept of the New World Order is that the state is God. A new eugenics religion based on the state being God, deciding who lives and who dies. I really think that's what's going on too. As we see here in this book, the molecular vision of life, Caltech, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the rise of new biology. Now, this book is really about the Rockefeller Foundation funding universities and eugenics research for social engineering. This quote right here sums it up. The Rockefeller Foundation officers and their scientific advisors sought to develop a mechanistic biology as the central element of a new science of man whose goal was social engineering. Even by the early 1920s, they had played out the harsh rhetoric of eugenics proper and had begun to move into a more covert, more subtle form of carrying out this program. And the Science of Men, the Science of Men, the Science of Man program on eugenics, carried out at Caltech and other Rockefeller-funded institutions, sought to do just that: control life processes, psychobiology, internal secretions, nutrition, radiation, biology of sex, experimentation and chemical embryology, genetics, general physiology, biophysics, biochemistry, and more. They really want you from cradle to grave, from conception to death, to control all your life processes where the state can decide who's even allowed to breed. And I want to follow up with a part 2 on this because it's just too important. What I'm trying to say is those who seek eugenics as a new religion are trying to put incredible power in the hands of the state. They've done that. It happened a long time ago, but we still have to fight back against it and face up to it. See you in part 2, Infowars.com.